This is Capsule on liveinlimbo.com. My name is Sean Chin.
And I am Andreas Babiolakis. This is an adventure into music, film, and pop culture.
How's your week been?
It's been pretty good. The weather's shaping up a little bit. We're getting some sunshine. I've become a meteorologist, apparently, and we're getting some flurries light in a few days, but that seems to be the worst of the snow that we're going to see for the rest of the year until winter comes back around. So I'm doing pretty well. This awful weather is finally almost gone.
It's like +9 or +6
It
Celsius.
is.
It's crazy warm.
Beautiful. Right now it's foggy outside, actually, according to my meteorology reports. And back to you, Sean Chin.
I'm going to direct it right to our news editor, Dakota. How's it going?
Things are going great over here, Mr. Chen. It's been okay. The weather is nicer, which, as Andreas was saying, is great. So, makes the winter blues go away. I'm a little sad because, 2 podcasts ago, I asked people to send me hate mail, and no one did.
There's no hate mail.
None.
You know
Come
why?
on.
Because this works nicely because I'm going to start off the show with some positive feedback.
Are you honestly trying to say that we did nothing wrong, people? Come on.
No, we're perfect.
All right, then let's go with the good feedback.
Okay, so this is our winner for the Way Home pair of tickets to Way Home, the festival. Big prize. So this is from The Atmosphere, at The Atmosphere. And it says, what everyone else has said. This podcast is A+. Listen to it regularly to keep myself informed. It's excellent for my long work commute. Please never stop.
Well, we have to stop so we can edit sometime, but thank you very much.
So yes, she's going to Way Home with us.
Congratulations.
Yay. Beautiful, beautiful.
All right, so a lot of cool things have happened this week, and I'm sure you all have heard about the Apple Watch.
We did, because you told us.
So what do you guys think about wearables in general? Dakota, what would you wear? I know you use a smartphone. It's an Android. It's inferior to an iPhone. But
no, let's not go down there.
but would you wear? Do you ever see yourself wearing like something on your wrist?
I don't think so. I only recently started wearing watches again in the past year and a bit, but I've really gotten into. I had an old roommate who would be constantly buying old vintage watches, and I kind of really like that, and that's something I want to get into. And so I want to basically go the complete opposite route of the wearable technology and go to like a real watch with like gears and stuff.
But do you? So you're not using it for a time. You're just using it to put on your wrist as like a fashion item to show that it's vintage.
No, I do use it for time. I have a everyday watch that I wear. My blue rubber band one that can take a beating at work since I'm in a warehouse all day. But then I also have a nice fancy leather band bamboo watch as well. That I use more for the fashion statement, but it's a combination of both. I don't know. I think people should bring the traditional watches back. But it's very gentlemanly.
Yeah. How about you, Andreas?
Well, I actually, when I upgraded to the S4, when the S5 came out, I guess because they wanted to get the S4s out, they did this pretty sweet deal where the Android version of the watch came out for really cheap. So I do have one, and I can tell you I rarely use it. Not because it's not useful. I think it's incredible. I feel like a secret agent. I get to talk into like the wrist area on the watch. I have all these apps that are on it. It's beautiful, but as Dakota said, I'm so worried that it's going to get scratched. I'm so worried it's going to get broken.
But what about like a regular watch? That could get broken in the same way.
No, but not in the same way that this is. I mean, like, look at touchscreen phones and how easily they break, and how many people have smashed screens, and it's difficult to work with them anymore. It's very different. And I use this watch now for fancy outings now, where I know that, with the suit and everything else, that I'm being delicate anyways. I'm not thrashing around again in a warehouse or fighting city traffic. I wear it where I know it's going to be safe, and it's not too often that I go to fancy outings. So I do wear it like maybe 3 times a year, but yeah, I'm trying to be really delicate with it, and I know not everyone's going to feel the same way as both Dakota and I do, but um, I don't know. It's something that I'm really worried of breaking.
Well, I haven't worn a watch in like 8 years, I'm gonna say, but I'm gonna get an Apple Watch, stainless
Really?
steel
I'm
with the
absolutely
white
surprised.
band. You're surprised that I have never worn a watch?
No,
No.
he's being facetious, Sean.
Oh,
I got one question. Speaking of cracked screens and things like that, this is just a stray observation. I only ever see people with Apple phones with cracked screens. Is it because more people have Apple iPhones, so my perception is changed?
probably.
I think so.
But like
Or they use
have
it
quite a
more.
few friends. I have quite a few friends who have Android phones. I've never seen a cracked phone. I've never cracked my Android, or my girlfriend hasn't cracked hers. What's the deal with it? Is just the glass different or something, or is this
It's
just
probably
perception?
like a use based thing. Like people that use iPhones probably use it significantly
No,
more.
I don't
I
buy
think
that.
so.
Oh,
for a
really?
second.
I buy that.
I don't buy that for a second.
No, people with Android, they customize their phones significantly, so they're always using theirs too. I don't think it's that. I've seen broken Android screens before, so it might be a perceptive thing. I just think, well, Apple did have that infamous phone where that did bend in your pocket, so that's
No, it
that's
does
the
not
only
bend. It
difference.
does not bend.
I have not seen anyone with a bent phone. It just seems like every time I'm on the bus, the person sitting next to me has a cracked iPhone.
I do notice that too. But it's like usually teens. Like when I stood in line for Lord, there was this like 14-year-old girl beside me, and it was like a bullet hole in her phone. I'm like, how the hell did that happen? She's like, I dropped it from my apartment building 3 stories up. I'm
Sure.
like, it still works? Holy crap. Why don't you get
That's
a new
crazy.
one?
Yeah, if it still works, I guess that's a testament to Apple. So I think you're going in Sean's favor there, Dakota. But I mean, I think it might just be the demographic thing. I broke a Nokia phone, so when people say, "Oh, Nokia is invincible," I was like, I was a teenager. I broke mine. It shattered. It's not. I think it's just people being irresponsible. I don't think it's the phone itself. And you can gather that a lot of people with Instagram tend to take risky photos from like weird balcony positions. Yeah, you could gather that people probably aren't that responsible with their technology.
No, I think
Maybe it's just because
yeah.
it's so commonplace that
Yeah.
we don't have to worry about the fact that we're really holding a $600 to $800 piece of technology in our hand. We seem to forget that sometimes.
Oh yeah, we do.
Though I think the issue here is that there's already wearables like from Samsung, as Andreas has, but the issue where they fail and things like Google Glass, which is a cool concept, but they fail, is that they're not sexy to wear. Apple is really good at making sexy things, and I think the Apple Watch is sexy.
I think Apple's good at making things simple. I don't mean that in an inferior way
Have
because
you
I
seen
love
it though?
Apple.
Like, and you compare it to what the Samsung one is. Is the Apple Watch not like significantly sexier looking?
I wouldn't say that at all. I think
God
the Samsung I have, the Samsung Watch I have, looks very sleek. Actually, I think the Apple one looks a bit cluttered actually with its app design. But that's just me.
Next topic. Anyway, so did you see
Sorry for
they
blaspheming.
also released a new MacBook? Like this is crazy. It's like super thin, 12 inches. It's like
It's thinner than the Air.
it's thinner than the Air. So they have MacBook, a MacBook Air, and the MacBook Pro line. I have a MacBook Pro from 2010. I'm due for an update. But anyway, so this MacBook, 12 inches with a Retina display, has no fans in it. That is crazy. This is like the traveler's dream computer.
But apparently, it's got a lot of fans like you, Sean.
What?
Ah.
No.
Two questions about that. I've not heard about this yet. One, if it doesn't have fans, how is that going to prevent it from overheating? Is there just like vents on the bottom? Like I'm confused about that. And then second, does it still have ports?
Yeah. Okay. So there's no fans in it. They reduced the logic board into 1/3 the size of a normal laptop one, which is crazy already. So it's pretty much full of batteries inside, but they engineered the inside to have like crevices where the air can come out, and the processor in it is super energy efficient, and everything about the screen is energy efficient as well. So I guess they got to a point where it's like not the super powerful laptop. It's like a mobile processor, so it can do like light web surfing and maybe minor photo editing and stuff like that. But it's
Right.
like
So like a heavy duty tablet almost.
Yeah, so it's like how the iPad or the iPhone do not have a fan in them.
I could
Okay,
see
so
why that'd be cool.
it's more of a change of the way that technology is changing. It's because old technology overheated, not that we've how do I word this?
Yeah, they got to a point where they can have a certain level of power, but not the most power, and it not produce the most amount of heat.
Yeah, it was limitations before that. All computers needed a fan, and now we're moving forward to where the materials and the way it's built doesn't need that.
Yes.
Okay.
So eventually, in like 5 or 10 years, we'll have a computer as powerful as a MacBook Pro in this fanless body. So just imagine like this is the first kind of decently well-powered computer that has no spinning hard drive and it has no fan. There's 0 moving parts in this laptop. So
Well, that actually is exciting.
Yeah, that is
like all
exciting.
jokes aside.
It is.
I know we bash you a lot for your Apple love, but no, that actually is kind of interesting. It's kind of like I don't remember what it's called. It's the pro version of the desktop where it's got like this cylindrical tower.
Yeah,
I
the black
remember,
thing,
yeah, people were saying, "Oh, it's a garbage can" for a while, but then they actually saw it and they're like, "Damn, actually, I've got to admit it." But Apple kind of figured that out. You know,
I want one so bad. Yeah, but
they're
anyways,
really pricey though.
you know,
aren't they?
like when you see the teenagers or even yourself once in a while, you'll put your laptop on your bed. You'll just leave it there.
Burn your bed.
Yeah, you burn your bed because it's gonna the vents can't get the
Breathe.
air out. So like
Yeah.
now you can leave it anywhere.
So what about ports?
There's one port.
Is that just for the power?
So this
or
is
like
a brand
USB?
new USB Type C port. So this can hold USB, the display port, and like 2 other kinds of port with and the power. It can do it all with one port, and you can buy like a dongle that has more ports if you need. But
people are seeing this as a disadvantage because you've got to buy what every other computer has as a standard port system where they have, USB and other ports. Now you have to buy an additional thing for however many dollars because it comes with nothing. People are seeing this as a setback. As somebody who obviously doesn't hate Apple as yourself, what would be your argument against that?
So I think I have read those negative things too, and I've heard about it. However, this is a very Apple type of move to do. Every year or every other year, they'll have one very polarizing device where it's almost like they're either really stupid or they can see far into the future of where everyone is going to be with mobile. I think this MacBook is geared if you're going to be using like lots of external hard drives and lots of external peripherals, you're going to be buying the MacBook Pro probably. And this is for like people that need to just carry around a small laptop here and there and like toss it around, like be rugged with it and stuff like that.
It kind of reminds me a bit of the Surface.
No, don't do that.
Well, that's exactly what it is. It's got a keyboard. It can be both a tablet and a computer, but it's not meant for heavy duty work.
Yeah, maybe we'll see. I like the idea though. I would totally get one. Like my ideal setup would be the black cylindrical Mac Pro for heavy duty work at home, and then when I'm on the go, you bring this small 12-inch MacBook, fanless MacBook.
Yeah, that's what a lot of people do right now with like their tablets and stuff like that. If there was something in between a tablet and a full-on, desktop sort of setup, I think that would appeal for a lot of people.
Totally. So that's pretty cool. And people are probably sick of our Apple talk now and our technology stuff. So let's talk more about music. To follow up on our 2014 year-end review podcast, Sarah mentioned how 2014 was very unimpressive, and I think there was a general consensus that was true. But Andreas, this week you wrote a nice Facebook status update that sounds promising. And so what did you say?
I had a bit of a music orgasm on my Facebook because of a lot of the recent music that's just come out, which actually, interestingly enough, one of the artists just released a song last night, and Dakota and I can discuss it as well with you, Sean. I don't know if you've heard it yet. Dakota probably has. Where a lot of artists who are releasing music have done quality work, and a lot of interesting names have popped up as being possible releases for later on in the year. So we've had recent leaks like Modest Mouse and Sufjan Stevens. Both albums are great. Sufjan Stevens' album, Carrie and Lowell, I will be reviewing for the site. It's an absolute gem of the year so far. We've had previous releases like Panda Bear and Bjork, and upcoming releases which are highly promising, like Chromatics, which is a personal favorite of mine, and Kendrick Lamar's To Pimp a Butterfly, which I think there isn't a single soul who's not interested in that. Tame Impala's new song indicates that a new album's coming out. I think already we have a massive increase from how last year was. And the song I'm talking about, of course, is the new Kendrick Lamar. Did you get a chance to listen to it at all, Dakota?
Are you kidding me? Of course I did. As soon as I saw that leaked, I went and listened to it right away.
It was pretty sexy.
What did you guys think?
Compared to The Blacker the Berry and it's probably the weakest of the three, but of course I still loved it. It's definitely shaping up to be a very eclectic and interesting album. Did you also see the article of where someone published a first impressions because they got a sneak preview of it?
No, I didn't. What did they say?
They were just mostly talking about how it seems like for the album, he basically takes every part of Black music culture and incorporates into it. There's quite a bit of jazz, there's quite a bit of spoken word, lots of blues and funk based beats, and then of course hip hop and R&B and a whole bunch of other stuff all mashed together. And you know, most of the time when you're trying to cram so many different styles in together, it doesn't usually work. There's too many influences. But with Kendrick, they all shine, and the way his voice kind of cuts through beats, it all works together greatly. And they're saying it's definitely his best album yet, and it's probably going to be one of the best hip hop albums ever.
Can you send me the link to that so I'll include that in the show notes?
Sure, yeah.
Yeah, that's totally cool. But what about you, Dakota? What do you think about this year, like with all the acts that Andreas mentioned, or if you have
Kanye
more?
West, which I forgot.
Yes.
I'm absolutely loving this year. On top of the ones that Andreas mentioned, there's quite a few, you know, supposed releases that might come out. You know, Chance the Rapper might come out with something. Death Grips is supposed to be coming out with something.
Oh, yeah.
Drake's full album is supposed to be coming out. Death Heaven might be coming out with something. So all these like potential
Radiohead, yes.
Radiohead. But then on top of the ones that have already come out, Father John Misty's new one was excellent. I really enjoyed that quite a bit. I know not everyone loves Father John Misty, but I really do.
Sarah does, yeah.
Trying to think of who else might be coming out. Oh yeah, Slater Kinney had a new album that got pretty good reviews. And then some other like big Canadian bands like Mets are supposed to come out with their next album, and I'm really, really excited for that after their debut single came out. So yeah, I definitely think that this year is going to be stronger than last year. You know, music is very cyclical because not every act puts out music every year. So, you know, every 2 to 3 years, you're going to start to see artists releasing new music again. So, you know, every 2, 3, 4 years, it's going to be what seems like the best time in a long time because all these great artists are once again putting music out again.
Yeah, it's like 2010, but it's good that we can actually see a year that's starting to mirror that year and not have to compare with it. Where 2010, we had a lot of big releases. We had obviously Kanye West released his possibly his opus that year, unless he manages to top it, and depending on who you talk to. We had Deer Hunter, Beach House, Sufjan Stevens again with Age of Odds. The Suburbs, Arcade Fire, and et cetera, et cetera. You could dig deeper, but we're going to focus on this year instead, which is shaping up to be a similar year, if not even possibly better.
That's very exciting.
It also seems like a lot of these acts only have 1 or 2 albums out and are like really dominating. It's no longer the age of, you know, the real veteran guys who are like putting out the best music of the year. It's a whole bunch of really new and exciting bands that a few years ago were sort of underground unless you really paid attention to the music scene or devoured everything Pitchfork put out. You wouldn't really know who they were, but now they're all really starting to hit it big.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at it this year, like Dakota and I, we were talking, let's say that a lot of people are excited about Kanye West's album, So Help Me God. Of course they are. But it's one of the few times in recent, like, mainstream hip-hop history, let's say, mainstream, to kind of fight off a lot of arguments, in mainstream hip hop history where a hip hop album that could be even more influential and even more groundbreaking is coming out. And of course, that's Kendrick Lamar's, where, with Yeezus, there wasn't a lot of competition. But if you dug deeper, of course, you could say Death Grips was competition there, or other alternative hip hop acts. But this year, in terms of mainstream music, yeah, there's a lot of debate as to which one will be better. And so far, it's looking like To Pimp a Butterfly might be edging out So Help Me God. So we'll see. We'll see when they both drop soon.
That's really cool. But so when you have a year that's looking up to be or shaping up to be one of the best, does it really matter who is the best, or are you just excited that there are so many really great albums coming out?
It's exciting because, a lot of people will see that there's a Kanye West album and then he dominates. Like in the Paz and Jop annual list, he's dominated 4 times with College Dropout, Late Registration, Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy, and Yeezus. So in terms of critical favoritism, Kanye West tops a lot, and it goes to show that he actually does have good music depending on who you talk to, regardless of what his persona is like. But it's interesting to see that for once people aren't already calling it like a clear winner. Like they're actually saying, okay, maybe there could be this hip hop album that could actually like edge it out as being the one to go to this year. And it's nice to see that it's a young, fresh talent like Kendrick Lamar, who's far from being like anything not noticeable. I mean, he's probably one of the greatest rappers of this generation. Yeah. I would say personally, anyways.
You know what you should do though, but so you have that Facebook post with all these names, and then at the end of the year, you should see if all of them make it into the top 10 of your list.
That'd be interesting. Yeah, keep a screenshot of that. Let's see if I bite my tongue where it's like, okay, there, Tame Impala. That one song was good, but the rest, no, I can guarantee that they do well.
The Tame Impala is another act where, they're sort of on the peripheral edges of making it big. If this album actually is as strong as everyone's hoping it to be, then I can definitely see them bursting into the mainstream. Most people don't know who Tame Impala are. They maybe have heard the name or maybe have heard some of the songs without even knowing it.
Or that Samsung commercial with Elephant. That's about it.
Yeah. They'll probably recognize that. But outside of that, most people don't really know who Tame Impala are unless you're really paying attention to like the music scene. And even then you kind of have to be into psych rock to get them.
Have you guys ever seen an impala?
The actual animal?
Yes.
I have before, actually.
I have too, in South Africa, in Cape Town, when I was on a safari. I saw an impala.
Very cool.
I don't think it was tamed, though.
Well, it was in the wild, so probably not. I saw it in a zoo setting, so that one was tamed.
Africa?
Yeah, so I did see... Oh, no, not in Africa. I've seen it in the States and over here, so I've seen a Tame Impala live. Cool. But I haven't seen Tame Impala live, I guess, so...
Okay, well, we'll see. All right, so let's talk again.
Beautiful discussion.
Yeah, let's talk more about streaming. So last week, I guess, 2 episodes ago, we talked about how free is not sustainable. And again, this week, the Sony music chief, his name is Doug Morris, he also weighed in on this. And he said, basically, free is the decline of the music business, and this is the biggest culprit is probably YouTube and free sites like that. But if people like Jimmy Iovine do well with Apple Beats, as they know how to market themselves and be sexy. I said sexy a lot this episode, sorry. But anyways, if they can, they and Apple can really push this, then like their paid tier, then this could change the industry again. What do you guys think? Is YouTube a culprit?
Dakota, you can handle this one first.
I feel that it's a little over exaggerated by him by saying that YouTube is the culprit.
They're big ones.
No, that's like basically saying, 10 years prior to that, MTV was the culprit because people can watch music videos for free on their TV. Like, there's no correlation between that. That's like blaming radio. There is no, you can't say, because people aren't paying for it, that's why everything is for free. No, you don't see people on the subway listening to YouTube. That's not how exactly it works. So
I
I
can
think
recall
that's,
myself watching some YouTube videos while, like, at work.
yeah, I'm not
No, on
saying
the
that
subway.
like people don't, but like, and all the time people don't exclusively use YouTube as their music provider.
Oh,
You know,
but do
they're
you think because the subway doesn't have Wi-Fi, but now they do? I think sometimes.
that's just an example I'm using where people aren't, spending every waking second being like, okay, next song, okay, next song, okay, next song, by searching it all on YouTube. People want ways, whether if it's you're downloading it illegally, so that way you have it all there, or you're using streaming services where you can use it offline, or you're buying it either on iTunes or you're ripping it from CDs or records or things like that. People want a way so that way the music is contained and they don't have to worry about it. They can press play on something and walk away. And YouTube has ads. Like, that's BS where it's actually free. It's not, because, people watch an ad and the artist gets paid. Yeah, they don't get paid much more than pennies, but they're still getting paid. So it's not exactly free.
Andreas?
Yeah, and I mean, I feel like so many of these arguments, and we've done this before time and time again on Capsule, and I'm sure other people have done this as well on their own podcasts or their own shows or vice versa, where we have to face the fact that a lot of these strategies aren't looking at who's really listening to music. They're looking at people who listen to it on a shallow level. So many people online who really check out music and buy it in bulk would not like YouTube quality because it is so much lower. And that, this kind of service is not something that would cater to the people who are actually interested in music. This is just for the people who will shallowly, if that's a word, listen to whatever the hottest song is and to put it up. That's why there are billions of views on something like Gangnam Style, even though, let's face it, that's not the greatest song in the world.
But
Sorry,
don't you
Sai,
think
if you
he
ever
would have
wanted to have an
made more
interview, it's
money
not.
if all those 2 billion people downloaded it from iTunes instead of watched it on YouTube?
Yeah, but we're also looking at who's listening to it. It's the people who are listening to it as a shallow kick, where it's like it's pop entertainment, where you chew the candy and then you spit out the remains of it, whatever they may be, because you're done with it and you're ready to move on to the next piece of candy. This is it's all fad music. This, whereas if people who are really serious and will pay for stuff won't buy stuff like this. So again, people who are going to be shallowly listening to music, I keep using that word, I don't know if it exists, well, find means and ways to always find it in the cheapest or freest ways, whereas people like us who buy music, whether you buy it digitally like Sean or physically like Dakota, myself, you buy physical music, right, Dakota?
Yeah, I buy records all the time.
Oh, so you're saying
Okay, perfect.
people that watch stuff...
We'll buy music still.
Yeah. Okay, you're saying that people, like, where there's videos that go viral, such as Gangnam Style and other ones, they only do that for, like, a few instances for kicks, and they're not listening to it as actual music that they would listen to on a daily basis.
Yeah, when things go viral, it's because they're popular for a short while.
Yeah,
I mean, if we did a reader poll now, let's say, when was the last time you listened to Gangnam Style? It wouldn't have been for 2 years.
Yeah, people don't have Gangnam Style on their playlist.
But then you see people who love Led Zeppelin who are still going to Led Zeppelin videos and going, why aren't there that many views? I'm still listening to this, Yeah.
And then you look at something where the completely leaving out the type of music, but Justin Bieber, who I believe has the most hits on YouTube of all time. I don't know if he still does or not. That's regardless, but he is one of the highest viewed people. His demographic is younger people who probably most likely don't have disposable income to go out and be buying tons of, albums or paying a monthly fee because they don't have a credit card and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
And, let's be honest, let's call a spade a spade. Sony's chief is an old man. How many times do we have to have this argument where these heads of studios, whether it's movies or music, are trying to use old, outdated models, or when the new technology comes around, still trying to use the old models instead of, adapting to what the people want.
They're scared.
Exactly. And so, he's going, YouTube is the cause of why we're not selling music. Well, no. Have you looked at other reasons why you're maybe not selling as much music? Because you're not giving people a way to listen to it the way they want to listen to it, or pay the price that they want to pay. That seems fair because, most people don't want to spend $20 on a CD. That makes no sense. So that's why they turn to Apple. And then at a certain point, how much is too much? That's why they turn to streaming. And then when you're having free and premium, how much is too much? It's a constant battle of being able to read the market, and these frankly old people do not know how to read the market. They're stuck in their ways because they made their money at one point and don't want to change it.
There you
and
go,
they want to continue
Mr.
making
Doug
money.
Morris. Doug Morris, you got some advice from us. Use it if you're listening.
I'm sure we're not the only people who are shouting this, because there's definitely more than that. These head of studios are blaming the consumers for consumer habits instead of looking in the mirror at themselves.
Yeah, it's like a teacher saying, like a teacher saying my entire class is disruptive. Is it the students or is it me? Oh, it must be the students,
And if there's anyone that's good at changing habits and influencing, it is Apple.
Cricket.
Well,
cricket.
Oh my God.
Cricket.
Well, now let's just finish that part off with saying, Dakota, if you didn't get hate mail before, you might now, especially from PS3 fanboys, or PS4 rather. I forgot. I'm an old man. I'm stuck in my old ways, as you can tell. But
bring on your Doug Morris hate mail.
Yeah, there you go. Directed to him.
All right, Andreas, let's talk about your favorite song from a few years ago, Blurred Lines.
Oh yeah, you gotta dig that hype man. Wow, at the back. It's so repetitive. I love it. It's cute. No, I actually can't stand the song, but you raise a good point. I am still very interested in the case that just got finished a few days ago.
So essentially, who is it? The house or the estate of Marvin Gaye's. They sued Robin Thicke and Pharrell Williams, and they won $7.4 million US, which is like an additional 25% Canadian.
And they're going after Pharrell Williams again for his song Happy, which I think is just commencing, which Pharrell Williams, poor guy. He's anything but happy, I guess.
So okay, first we'll talk about the song and the similarities, and then we'll talk about what's probably more important, which is what it means to the music industry. So song-wise, to me, when I listened to them, I didn't really get too much of a connection. Did you guys?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah? Which part?
Oh, yeah. Dakota, what about you?
No, you go first. It's okay.
Okay. It's the bare backbone of both songs has a very similar rhythmic style, but this is why there's such a feud and controversy, because it's like we were talking before the podcast, Sean, blues music, which has a very set structure. There's actually blues chords, R&B from the Motown days. There's a set rhythmic style, where it's got like a specific drum break, or it's got a very specific bass line that's represented in so many songs. So in that nature, seeing that Blurred Lines, like a lot of modern songs, oddly enough, Megan Trainore's All About That Bass is also very retro in sound. It's a very common thing that's happening now, even though lyrically they're very, very juvenile, let's say, but the song structures are still similar. You're going to find these similar song structures. So yeah, both Marvin Gaye's song and Blurred Lines has a very similar rhythm section to it, with the percussion and the bass to it. So that's my piece.
And Dakota, what do you think? Do they sound similar to you?
It's been a long time since I've listened to the Marvin Gaye song. Andreas is kind of on point where, the rhythms are similar enough, but as someone who's really studied music history, it's very frustrating to see these sort of things because everyone borrows from everyone.
Yeah.
Going back to a Led Zeppelin point, how many times have they been, accused of directly stealing entire riffs? Well, what they were doing was taking blues chords and blues beats and slapping their own, guitar solos and wailing lyrics on top of it. I don't understand how this is still an issue in the article that you sent, they point out how they don't understand how this even got to a jury because, it's super easy. Once you're dealing with people's emotions, it gets a lot more complicated and confusing, and you're dealing with the personal side of things. But as far as for like music goes, I don't understand what this judge was thinking. This judge just opened a huge can of worms that I'm not really looking forward to seeing how it plays out.
I think another big case happened a few years ago with Coldplay's, I think it was Viva La Vida, and it sounded a lot like another song. And then it blew up, but it never went to a court. Like, I don't know how, as you said, Dakota, how this made it to a court and how...
The Joe Satriani song?
And yes, that one.
Well, that's a bit different because it had a similar chord progression, which makes a little bit more sense if it's like the main melody of the song, where Chris Martin's vocals in relation to the backing chords sounded so much like a Joe Satriani guitar line in relation to the backing chords. That's a little bit different because there is music plagiarism, but then, as Dakota said, there's a point where enough is enough, where you're going too deep and saying, okay, you're using a similar drum fill, that's theft, and it's not. How many variations of drum fills can you have? Not everybody is the dude from Radiohead where you can invent stuff on the drum which you haven't heard in years,
Yeah, so like I don't know how, like, many artists have complained that other artists copied them or took ideas from them, but they never got this far. And I don't know how this judge awarded the estate of Marvin Gaye's $7.5 million. How did they even come up with $7.4 million?
Well, it's how successful Blurred Lines was in terms of going back to streaming, the streaming count, the iTunes count, the physical sales.
But I kind of feel bad for Robin Thicke because that was his only like source of income, and now it's like gone. That one song. Everything else he has is crap.
He's had quite a bit of a career before that, and he probably owns the publishing rights as well to a bunch of other songs, and I believe he's written for other people as well. So
but Blurred Lines was like his cash cow.
Oh, yeah, I don't
and
deny
now that cow has been killed and turned into a beef patty.
I think he'll be okay. His dad is also Alan Thicke.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I think Pharrell Williams is kind of in the rougher position now because, again, they're going after him for Happy as well, which, again, is for a very similar reason where it's the rhythm section behind. It's kind of like...
The same Marvin Gaye's estate?
I think so.
Oh my God.
It's like one of my song picks of last year was LaRue's Tropical Chancer, which a lot of people were saying was a ripoff of Daft Punk's Get Lucky, which...
Oh, yeah, I can see that.
Let's imagine Daft Punk were the Marvin Gaye estate. LaRue would have been sued by now if it was as big as Blurred Lines because the instances are almost identical where it's the Nile Rodgers. Yeah. It's the Nile Rodgers chord progression, which is so oftenly found in disco and funk music. So it's not something that's a blurred and ripoff, but it's the very similar situation here where it's just a correlation of style that is present in many, many songs and not just these. But
I never thought about that. Now I can imagine both the two songs, LaRue's and Daft Punk's. They do sound.
But you could do this with so many because it's a style thing. I never
thought about that until now.
It's not a theft thing. It's a style thing.
That's kind of mind blowing, actually.
Well, again, you could do this with so many songs, and there was that huge thing with Bittersweet Symphony and the Rolling Stones song that the Verve apparently stole from, where the Rolling Stones song did something that Led Zeppelin did, as Dakota was saying, where it took from a folk or blues song before, but it was fine. There was a symphony rendition or symphonic rendition of it done by Rolling Stones producer, which ended up being the third appropriation of that first song. Bittersweet Symphony existed. That's the song that got into legal trouble. Yeah. Like there comes a point in line where it's like, when is it actually a feasible argument, or when is it just a personal attack, like you saw with Marvin Gaye's?
But the Bittersweet Symphony, they explicitly say, yes, we're using this part of the song.
Well, because in some instances, that's how it is. It's a tribute, or it's
sampling.
Basically, yes. Well, look at
what about all these
Hell of a
EDM
Life on your list. They credit Black Sabbath because they use a similar the chorus of that song is similar to the song structure in Iron Man, and they say, well, okay, it's let's give Black Sabbath's writers some credit then, so they can get out of that. You know, some people just use tributes as a statement or as fondness. Not everything is theft.
But what about all the EDM people? Aren't they all just copying each other too? Like, how many beats in GarageBand can you use?
I don't know, Dakota, would you know anything more about EDM than I would?
There's so many different programs now where sometimes these producers won't even talk about which programs they use because that's how they're creating their original beats and things like that. But yeah, a lot of it is based on similar styles, like, you know, take a broad term, dubstep, like dropping the bass. There's only so many different ways that you can drop a beat, sort of thing.
Yeah, how come no one sued anyone for dropping a bass
I think it's because
or dropping a beat?
that's a can of worms they don't want to open themselves. I think the biggest issue comes from
who started dropping the beat.
When people sample someone else but cover it up and to get out of paying the sample rights, which I do believe needs to be done, and try to deny that they're using a sample, whether it's a guitar or a bass line or, you know, an entire riff or, you know, a chorus or things like that. It's a lot easier in things like hip hop songs to see samples because they're a lot more overt about it. But, you know, in rock, I guarantee that there's probably bands that sample from other artists and try to deny that they're doing it. And that's where I think the issue comes up. Was Pharell sampling Marvin Gaye, or was he either, you know, paying an homage or, you know, accidentally wrote something without even realizing that he had heard it before, which I know happens all the time. That's where the line gets blurred.
No pun intended.
I almost said
maybe
fuzzy.
they predicted what was going to happen with the song. Blurred
Like,
lines.
what do you mean?
Blurred lines. Like, they knew in like a few years this would make like a gray area for the music industry.
Because you're a good girl?
No, because of them copying music or accidentally copying music.
Yeah, I don't know how that works.
Suppose you never knew or even heard of this other legendary band before, and you're just like totally naive and ignorant, and you make an amazing song, but it sounds exactly the same. But it's totally from you original.
Yeah, that does happen. I can't remember what the legal term of that is.
Ignorance.
Oh, there's an actual
ignorance.
There's an actual term for that, where you probably don't know that you've heard it before. You can claim that you've never heard of this artist. You can claim that you have never owned their albums or things like that.
Yeah.
But through one form or another, you had probably heard it, and then through the back of your mind, it sat there for years, and then you're playing around on the guitar or piano or whatever it is, and start playing something that you think is original, that you're wholly convinced is original, but it's somewhere buried deep in your brain is coming out.
Yeah,
because you've heard it before.
It's like that author who wrote The Bridge to Terabithia. She was like, oh yeah, this is an original story, but then she started to get into some legal trouble because it said, hey, isn't this from a C.S. Lewis story where it's like the Terabithia with an N? And she said, oh my goodness, I completely forgot that even existed. I will change the name slightly. This was not meant to be theft at all. And there was like this big case because she had to convince people that she didn't want to steal anything at all, that it was, as you said, at the back of her mind. She saw it in passing. Like this whole Freudian theory that everybody in your dream is somebody that you've seen in real life, even for a split second, because that's how your brain would render these feelings and these thoughts. It's something that you don't even notice that you will later on in your life, and you'll think of it as your own. It's a very tricky subject because, like mental illness, you can't really dig into somebody's mind and pick out what's happening there. That's why it's very tricky, all of this, like how far this can go, especially with this Marvin Gaye lawsuit. How far can this go where, innocence like this, where you don't really mean to rip somebody off, will start getting slammed for?
So, do you think what do you think the judge should have done?
Me personally?
Yeah.
Well, there was a good point being made where they brought in a piano, I believe, and they played songs. They said, "Look how similar these are." I don't know if that was the best way of displaying that point because they could have selectively picked easy songs to mirror one another. But the point they were trying to make was very clear that there are so many songs now that it's difficult to be solely original, and everyone's influenced. Jimi Hendrix has been influenced by blues, and so has Jimmy Page. The Rolling Stones were influenced by soul and the country sound as well later on into the career. Are they going to get sued for using slide guitar in some of their mid catalog?
What about like Gautier and there's someone I used to know? The beginning sounds like Twinkle
Baba
Twinkle.
Black Sheep.
Well, yeah, Twinkle Twinkle Little Star. Who owns
Is it? I thought it was Baba Black Sheep.
Oh, yeah,
Baba Black Sheep, have you any wool? Or
Twinkle Twinkle.
that is
Twinkle, Little.
the most
That's the same
embarrassing podcast moment yet.
A lot of nursery rhymes follow the same beat.
So how come they didn't sue each other?
Because I believe nursery rhymes aren't owned.
Yeah.
Yeah, someone had to write them.
No, but they work differently
Free domain.
back then. Yeah.
Why are those free domain?
Because it wasn't when legal contracts were being made for copyrights.
So that is the issue. Everyone got all protective and crap like that.
Well,
Corporate-y.
Sorry, go ahead.
That only really started come the 60s and 70s, especially when acts like the Beatles started writing their own music. Before that, it was completely owned by the songwriters, which were owned by songwriting houses and things like that, which is why a lot of blues music, early blues music from like the 20s and 30s, Delta music and things like that, is completely free domain because they were just singing, old slave songs and things like that and cotton picking songs and they just were adapting it. It wasn't until artists actually began writing their own music and lyrics that copyright issues became a thing because they had their managers screwing them out of money.
Exactly. Well, the Beatles used to be the kind of band that used to do exactly that, where they played songs that were written by songwriters until, again, as you said, they broke ground by being like one of those boy bands with the face to write their own music and become solely studio released. And there was actually a big outcry. When was it? The late 60s or the 70s when the copyright wasn't done properly. So everything from those eras was free domain. Yeah. Do you remember?
Yeah, I think that was early 80s because that was when Michael Jackson ended up buying half of the Beatles catalog and Paul McCartney had to buy the other half.
There was also an instance cinematically in the 70s because
what you're talking about.
Like Night of the Living Dead, which was late 60s, was free domain and was online.
I think that was early 70s.
Yeah, it was something to that nature where they'll find loopholes where it's like, hey, this is free domain now, let's shove this online. So it's, if anything, it's probably way more tighter now because they're, again, the old generation is very scared of what will happen if these things take a different direction.
Do you know what the most copyrighted song ever is?
No, I don't.
It's Happy Birthday. That's why you don't see it on television or movies. It's always for He's a Jolly Good Fellow.
Yes. I actually did know that in the back of my mind. I forgot about it though. And it's probably, it's the copyrighted song that's been presented the most, obviously, because, do
you think this also happens to technology too? Like back in the day, like if Edison patented electricity, then no one would have it now. Or the guy who made the internet or something.
Don't bring up Edison because he was a horrible example for that because he would go after people.
Well, the whole Tesla debacle there.
Or the guy who invented the internet. He didn't patent the internet.
Who, Al Gore?
No.
Tim Berners-Lee?
Yeah.
No, I was being facetious.
I'm just saying, like, for music, though, I can understand how the written lyrics can be copyrighted. I guess it's like you would look at it like a book or something. But, like, can you copyright notes?
I don't think it's an issue where it's not copyright in the sense that you're describing it. The issue is, if someone creates something, should it be owned by someone? Yes. Should it be that you can't be influenced by it? No, because then, how far back do you need to go to find something that's truly original? Like, go back to cavemen, basically?
Can you imagine how bad that would be if a new musician or any musician was about to write a new song then they'd have to draft it and then give it to a lawyer, and then they'd have to look through all of history to see if it copyrighted anything.
This is the
Which
future
is
of music.
ridiculous. So the issue has to be when these things, when people are making these claims and bringing people to court, is was there a sample involved? Did they steal an actual sample? Not does it sound close enough? Is it a rip-off? Things like that. Are you using material that you did not create without paying the licensing fees for it? Yes or no? If it's no, then move along. Sorry, everyone gets influences by the same things. Everything gets passed on. That's how music and art gets created. But if there is clear definition of either a line, a riff, a whole chorus, things like that, where is clearly taken directly from something else, then yes, pay up. You deserve to be sued.
It's not like they took a copy of the Marvin Gaye song and just totally re-uploaded it. Completely.
Correct.
But for when you make that point about art, what about painting? If you do brush strokes like Van Gogh, can his estate sue you?
No, obviously not, because that's absolutely ludicrous to
But that
think.
has not happened yet. Can you imagine that? If you're like painting something, it's like you can't brush
Well, this
stroke
is the
like
direction we're going in, because it's not about the art anymore. It's about the greediness behind the chair, where like the men in suits will look and say, how could we wangle our way through this one?
Yeah.
It's not about rights anymore, and that's what's scary.
How can we milk this cow even
I'm not
more?
linking this to the Marvin Gaye incident because I feel that was something that the estate felt was personal.
But do you think
I'm
they should
saying
have
in
won
general. Do I think they should have won like the Marvin Gaye estate?
Yeah, 7.4 million.
I don't think so.
And
what should they have? What should have the judge done if not award them money?
Some sort of a settlement, but not like that.
I agree on potentially a settlement if the judge believed that the material used in Blurred Lines was directly taken from the Marvin Gaye's song. Then two things need to happen. One, Marvin Gaye needs to be credited as a co-writer, music writer, and two, be awarded a percentage of the profits based on what a co-writer deserves, whether that for both backlog and for future.
That's a good one. But how do you know? How does a judge find out if they did that and not just come up with it by themselves? How do you prove?
Music experts. That's what court is for. You give testimonies and things like that, and you're cross-examined. And there's enough experts in this field to know how this works. And anytime a major album release comes out from a major label, it has to be vetted by lawyers anyways. So this comes back to labels not wanting to pay other people their correct money because they go, oh, okay, well, we're not going to say that we actually use a Marvin Gaye sample because they're too expensive to pay for. So we're just going to, gloss over this song and go to the next. Oh, look, some obscure guy from the 70s that never made it big. Yeah, it's cheap to buy the rights for that song.
Mm-hmm. No, I agree entirely.
Yeah, I don't know how to follow up with that. Yeah, that's pretty.
I think we all have a mutual agreement on this issue, and I think a lot of people do as well, which is why this is a big outcry. Because it's one thing if Robin Thicke and Pharrell Williams had to say, okay, well, let's add Marvin Gaye as a co-writer, but that's not what's happening here, and that's why it's kind of scary.
The only positive thing I can get from this is that they used such a big song and such big names to get the issue out there, and maybe from this they can figure out a better way of figuring out this copyright issue in music and art.
I think if there is anything to kind of glean from this is they used a very good test subject. They took someone who isn't very widely liked with Robin Thicke and used him as a scapegoat to kind of see how this goes, where the line between direct sample and really, really, really good influence to the point where it sounds very similar is kind of muddled, and they probably went through a good court system where they knew that the judge would be more favorable to the original owners. Things like patent trolls are really great to do in Texas and whatnot because their laws are a lot more lax about it. I'm sure everything about this case was extremely calculated.
Absolutely, yes.
It's also fearful because this is also a testament that anybody who's attacking can quite easily win, which is also kind of scary.
And I think it kind of makes it hard for people to innovate in music too, because you always have to be worried now.
Innovate and defend.
Yeah.
Both are very scary for the future.
And why do you need to have to defend by the fact that someone like me, I am really into, 70s funk and soul? Why do I have to defend that? Because that's the type of music I'm making.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Huh.
I shouldn't have to.
No, you shouldn't. Especially, it's like art, right?
Well, I'm going to get more hate mail directed my way, but this is where I feel Kanye West is doing well because he's doing just that. It's the appropriation through the stance of a former art student as he was. I would never say that Kanye West kind of steals, but of course he pulls influences from everywhere. You could tell by the amount of writers and producers he has on his albums, the amount of influences he has, whether it's King Crimson and Black Sabbath on one album or the album artwork, which was being used before by another musician from years ago. I think he's a good example at kind of questioning what you can do with representation, because I don't think he's ever credited himself for anything when it comes to like these kinds of arguments, but he's certainly somebody who tests the waters.
Absolutely.
So
and he gets everyone their due, though. That's the thing. Like
exactly.
Blood on the Leaves, everyone knew it was a Nina Simone song. There was no denying that he was using her riff.
Yeah, well, it was a tribute, though, because he used it for a good reason. And he used Iron Man and 21st Century Skidwood Man for a good reason. Like, he had a purpose. He had the rights behind it.
Yeah.
He had everything carefully thought out, but he's still technically using something that he didn't create solely, which, again, we have no problem with. But let's see the day that, well, Kanye West's not exactly a well-liked figure himself right now, except he's got the critical acclaim behind him
right now.
Kind of
He's
save
great.
him. Well, no, but like the majority of people are attacking him. Like that fake, by the way, anonymous video that kind of attacked him wasn't actually anonymous. Nonetheless, let's see if they take an unliked test subject like him and attack him in the future, like they did with Robin Thicke. So let's see.
Hey, let's get a poll here. So Dakota, do you like Kanye West? Like currently, right now, like in total, like personality and music wise, do you like him right now at this moment in time?
Kanye would have to literally kill someone like Kendrick Lamar for me to dislike him. And even then, I'm sure I'd feel that he was justified.
Yes.
Like there is literally probably nothing he could do that would actually make me dislike him, because all this media circus around him, that's what he wants. He wants you to talk about him. And you know what? He isn't the biggest rapper in the world because people aren't talking about him. He's the biggest because people are talking about him all the time. And you're feeding into what he wants and everything. Take a step back and realize that literally everything is a publicity stunt. Once you realize that, it all makes perfect sense and you stop caring about it. It's not like, bring up an example like Michael Jackson where he was, touching little boys. This isn't it. This is him going on stage and interrupting people and being rude. He's not doing anything illegal.
Yeah. Kanye West is awesome in my opinion.
Well, I'm going to add to that because I don't think it's just a publicity stunt.
That's
when he
just
was at
him.
his no, I don't think that either. I do think that this is all for a purpose. Years ago when he released Heartbreaks and 808s, or 808s and Heartbreak rather. Ooh, I'm such a good fan apparently. When he released that album and he was at his most vulnerable, he just had his big breakup, his mother just died, and he was being the most candid in interviews. He basically said, I want people to talk about me, but I don't want my music to be affected. So I will do that in any means necessary. And I don't get why people haven't latched onto that quote, because it explains Kanye West in a nutshell. I don't think it's just a publicity stunt, though. I think it's partially that. I think as a former art student who wants to inject meaning and purpose into so many things, I feel like a lot of this behavior is kind of his statement on how he is perceived. And his statement on what his music brings to people, like the separation between the artist and the music itself. So I have commented on his behavior before, but I still don't dislike the guy as a person. I think he does really irrational things, but I also like that to an extent, because to me it's like a modern punkier hip hop version of Muhammad Ali, where there is no bars being held, and it's this self egotistical loving that might not even be real, which I think people are reading way too deeply into. It's the social media 150 character mentality where this is being said, this must be the truth. And Kanye West's got everybody in the palm of his hand and they don't even know it. Yeah. Or they do and they're angry and they can't admit it.
It's kind of funny because, like, I think if you want to summarize Kanye as a person into one song, you don't have to look any further than Runaway, where he calls himself a douchebag, an asshole, a scumbag, and a jerk off, all in one section. Like, he's fully... People that want to complain about his personality, all you need to do is listen to his albums front to back and understand that he acknowledges all of it. He apologizes for it. He gives justification behind all of it. Like, everything to do with him as a person is all there in his music, but a lot of people aren't willing to give that the time because they go, oh, he's too rude. Oh, he interrupted Taylor Swift and Beck and all these people.
Or, oh, it's hip-hop. Like, I don't want to listen to this.
Yeah, or that sort of thing where, like, he lays everything out. He does not hide anything about it. You know, he's very blunt in his interviews, but he's even more blunt in his lyrics.
Yeah, well, My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy is the prime example where Runaway comes from that album, because the whole album is a stealth battle between, I want to be famous, but look what it's done. Not the fact that his private life's missing, but because it's changed him as a person and he doesn't know how to go back without the flashing lights, without the greed, without the image. He's lost. And even on Yeezus, when he talks about like this new slave mentality where the African American community is still being run into corners and lodged there, even though they feel more free, he targets himself a lot, saying, I can't stop finding fortunes delightful, but I'm stuck and I can't stop getting rid of this greedy mentality. And he targets himself a lot. You're right. You're absolutely right, especially on these last two albums. I don't know about So Help Me God, but it looks like he might be doing that on that album as well.
Have you, you guys have seen the interview he did with Zane Lowe, right? I've seen that like 4 times now. So good.
Well, not that many times.
It's really good. Anyways, I think that's a good place to end off this episode.
Kanye West is God.
Yeah, essentially Kanye West.
He said so in his song.
Kanye West.
I am a God.
So where can all of our listeners find you, Andreas?
You can find me online at Andreas Babs, but you can't find anyone else at that Twitter handle because it is copyrighted. And if you do anything similar, I will sue you for infringement.
$7.4 million.
Oh, yeah.
Dakota, where can all of our listeners find you?
You can find me on Twitter at Andreas Babs. Wait.
Sued.
I mean,
the Andreas Babs estate's going to come find you. You're going to get so much hate mail right now, and you're going to be in debt up to your ears. It's your fault. You're what's wrong with this industry. Do you know this?
You need to change. I've now taken it over, and it's now at DGAPA. So, either or.
It's all settled. And you can find myself on Twitter at Sean Chin. You can follow the show at Live in Limbo. Please subscribe to the show on iTunes. Give us 5 stars, like the nice person at the beginning of the show who won tickets to Way Home. Do the same. And of course, you can find the show notes at liveinlimbo.com/capsule. Take care.
Have a good one.